Allah is completely and perfectly just in His rulings, the mighty and majestic. حيث يقال, because Allah Ta'ala has said, وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ, and many of them were disobedient and rebellious. وَلَمْ يُعَمِّمْ, He did not make it am, He did not make it general for every one of them. Many of them were fasiqun, that means not all of them were fasiqun. Allah Ta'ala could have said, وَكُلُّهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ, and all of them were fasiqun. وَلَمْ يُعَمِّمْ, He didn't make it general like that. But Allah Ta'ala said, كَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ, many of them, they were rebellious. وَهَذَا هُوَ الْوَاجِبِ, this is wajib, this is obligatory. عَلَى مَنْ تَحَدَّثَ عَنْ قَوْمٍ أَنْ يُبَيِّنَ الْوَاقِعِ, when people speak about any group of people, they speak with their reality. They describe them with what they truly deserve to be described with. لِأَنَّ بَعْضَ النَّاسِ, because some people, إِذَا رَأَى مِنْ قَوْمٍ سَيْغًا فِي بَعْضِهِمْ, if some people see that there are some people that have some deviation in some of them, some of those people are deviant, or have some fault. عَمَّمَ الْحُكْمَ عَلَى الْجَمِيعِ, they generalize and paint everyone with the same brush. They say all of those people are like that. Very important. We hear from different cultures that magic is for example, widespread in that culture. Such and such country is known for, a lot of magicians and magic and khurafat, superstitions and omens and things like that. Is it fair then to say every person from such and such country, is involved in magic, involved in omens and sorcery and superstitions and those kind of flaws in tawheed? It's not fair. So we say what? The reality is, if it's widespread, it's widespread. You need to open your eyes and be careful about people from that country. But you don't say every single person from that country, is a person who is into omens, is into superstitions, right? That's generalizing in a way that's unjust. وَالْوَاجِبُ الْعَدَلِ, what's obligatory is balance or being fair. إِنْ كَانَ الْأَكْثَرُ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ, if the majority of the people are disobedient, فَقُلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ, and say most of them. وَإِنْ كَانَ كَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقِينَ فَعَبِّرْ بِالْكَثِيرِ, if there are many of them that are fasiqeen, that are disobedient, then use terms that talk about the majority. عَلَى حَسَبِ مَا تَقْتَضِيهِ الْحَالِ, that which the situation calls for. لِأَنَّ الْوَاجِبَ أَنْ يَقُومَ الْإِنسَانُ بِالْعَدَلِ, because it's obligatory that a person establish justice, meaning in his speech, in his evaluations, in his judgments. وَلَوْ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ, no matter if that's even against his own self. أَوْ وَالِدَيْهِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ, or if that's against his own two parents or his own relatives. The people of Hizbiyya generalize, and they generalize with horribly unfair generalizations. The people who love to criticize Ahl Sunnah, the followers of the Salaf, they like to find a weak, new person in their ranks who may have some character flaws. And they love to point at him and say, see the Salafis? That's how they are. They love to find the weakest of the Salafis and point at them and say, you see that one right there? That's what Salafis are all about. They don't point to the upright character of the best of us, the scholars, the students, people with good character, and say, look at the Salafis and their good character. No, they wish to discredit the haqq. So they unfairly and unjustly go to a new convert, a new brother, someone who's just learning, someone who's having difficulty refining his manners. And they say about him, they say, look at that. That's what Salafiyya does to a person. Subhanallah. Even when that person, with whatever he's being tried with of character flaws and disobedience, he may be 10 times better than he was 1 month ago because of Salafiyya. But they like to freeze it and say, look at that. Disobedience, poor character, rushing to judgment in issues. That's what Salafiyya is about. That's what all those youth are so obsessed about, claiming Salafiyya. They love that. And it's absolutely unfair. They love to say all the Salafis do is criticize and warn against people. Have you heard that? All the Salafis do is criticize and warn against people. Well, alhamdulillah, in this masjid for the last 10 months, we have about 200 hours of education. How many hours of those 200 hours have been criticizing individuals, mentioning their flaws, warning against them? How many? Can you guess? 1 hour? Maybe. Maybe 1 hour. You want to go to the, be real generous, maybe 2 hours. Out of 200 hours. And that's me. Other du'at are similar. If someone had 3-4% of what he says is criticism of people, we need that. We can't just speak about good and invite everyone to good. We have to be able to know what evil is and who's carrying that evil to be warned against it. But what do they say? Look at this. What can be found in 1% or 2% of the speech of Salafi callers? They say all they do is criticize people. Is that fair if it's 1%, 2% of a person's speech? If it was 10% of a person's speech, is it fair? This is the generalization of what? The people who are imbalanced due to their opposition to the truth. Within themselves, they're justified in saying that. They feel like it's really powerful and really strong and really important to make statements like this. But what is it in reality? Slander. Untrue. Absolutely untrue. And we have to watch our tongues, because the exaggeration that comes from our culture can lead us into lying. When you see a person and you see that he has bad character, he gets into arguments with his brothers, for example. When you say about him, all he does is argue with his brothers, is that a fair evaluation of him? Is there anyone who exists that all he does is get into arguments with his brothers? That's not a fair statement to say about anybody, that all he does is argue with his brothers. That's overboard. It's mubalagha. It's going overboard. You don't like people describing you with your flaws and making that who you are, the flaws that you have sometimes and they manifest in your character. No one can appreciate that. No one wants that. And everyone knows when it's directed towards them that it's unfair. And what's strange is when there's a need to criticize people because of their statements against Islam, their statements that violate the belief system in Islam, you'll find that upright critics, upon the guidance of the scholars, they never say, all this person does is make these kinds of mistakes. You'll never find that. But then when people criticize our criticisms, they say what? It's as if these Salafis reject the good deeds of everyone. We say, we have never criticized the good deeds of any of these people that needed to be criticized so as to keep the people away from their errors. We have never criticized those good things. And those good things are for them. We're not here to praise them for those good things either. We're here to warn against harmful matters that affect a person's religion. It doesn't benefit us in those warnings to mention good deeds and to praise them for those good deeds. However, those good deeds are established for them and they have them, and we have nothing to do with them. But they say what? The Salafis talk about people like they have no good deeds. That doesn't enter into criticizing an error, the mention of good deeds, unless you're on the innovated methodology of muwazanat, where you feel an unestablished obligation that if you criticize someone, you have to praise them along with your criticism. This is falsehood. It's from the methodology of al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun. It's not from the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah. If they wanted to criticize someone, if they needed to criticize someone, they would criticize someone and not praise him at the same time. Praising someone that you are warning from is counterproductive, as the ulama have said. Anyway, all of this what? To bring it to reality, we are required by our religion to be just in our statements and to represent people in our judgments for what they truly have with them based on what is apparent from them. It's not allowed for us to say about anyone who has a sin, a flaw, a defect, that that's all he does is that thing. That's unjust. Misrepresentation, and it's unjust, and we have to watch our tongues because that can happen on the speech of the people. All he does is borrow money. Someone who borrows money a lot. All he does is borrow money. Is that true? That all he does is borrow money? Right? No, it's not true. It's not all he does. Walhamdulillah. So we have to be careful, right? If you wanted to warn someone against him or about his excessive borrowing, you say, this person borrows money a lot. Then you're accurate with your statement. He borrows money a lot. But all he does is borrow money, unfair and misrepresentative.